My story starts out when I was 60 years old. A little unusual for your greatest moment in sports, but that's the way it went. When I was 60, I knew I wanted to continue to do a few things in my life. And to do those things, I was going to have to up my game from a physical standpoint. And the things that I wanted to do was to pursue a long-time interest in underwater archaeology, where I had been active for a few years, and quite frankly had been lucky about some of the projects I've gotten to be involved with. And to pursue the sport of freediving. Anybody know what that is? 1, 2, 3, 4, there she is. Yeah. It ain't soccer. It's called drowning with an objective. But I wanted to pursue it. I grew up around a river. We were always swimming. We were always having contests who could go the furthest underwater, who could go to the bottom of the river and come back with a handful of mud, that kind of stuff. So when I was 60, I said, I'm going to, if I'm ever going to get in great shape, I'm going to do it now. So I decided to pursue CrossFit. Anybody in here ever pursue CrossFit? Anybody ever enjoy it? I went to Billy Fletcher at CrossFit Alliance. What a hell of a CrossFit coach was and is. So I started pursuing CrossFit, pursuing it pretty seriously, and in addition, I started an underwater swimming program over at the Eastside Athletic Center, which has a really pretty nice pool, if you guys know where that is. And I worked at it, and I worked at it hard. And Billy decided one day that I was losing motivation, so he informed me that I was in a powerlifting competition for my 65th birthday. Thank you, Billy. And I said, okay. I showed up out of Furman University, and I did pretty well that day. I set a bench press record for people over 60. I mean, they're not the 4 guys over 60 that like to bench press, but I was better than all 3. And then to celebrate 65, and my wife thought I was crazy. She still does, but she was kind enough to be along with me. I went down to Grand Cayman and entered my first freediving competition. It is a sport that is illegal actually in the United States probably because people think it's really stupid. But I went down to Grand Cayman for my first freediving competition, and I was 65, but I set a national record for people 50 years and older, because that's as high as freediving age is supposed to go. So I did this not for the sports. Well, I did it because I wanted, it's not true, I did it because I wanted to learn and participate about freediving, but I really wanted to pursue underwater archaeology. And I wanted to freedive. And underwater archaeology requires you to be in good shape. First of all, you got to dive a lot. Secondly, every day of your life, you got to haul around air compressors, side scan sonars, magnetometers, things that weigh a lot. And if you're going to be the oldest guy on the project, which you are, you got to be able to do that, or at least I wanted to do that, to cover my weight. And I was lucky. God was I lucky about some of the projects I was involved in. And there are a number of those. It will suffice for me to tell you that I've gotten to work for the United States Navy History Center a few times, and my favorite project was in France one summer, where we were working on the completion of a map of the underwater wreckage related to the D-Day invasion. Those the soldiers who went ashore get all the credit, and they should, but there were 300 ships, tanks, landing craft, and assorted other vessels sunk off those shores, and nobody had ever mapped where they were, and that's what the Navy History Center wanted to do, and I got to work on that. My archaeology career went from Iraq to the Gulf of Mexico to Charleston Harbor with the Hunley Project, if you guys remember the Hunley Project, working with Clive Cussler's group, Yuma, and searching for the Bonhomme Richard, John Paul Jones's flagship in the English Channel. So I was lucky. And I pursued my freediving career. I pursued my weightlifting career. I ended up setting 5 state records. And anybody out there is lifting weights and saying, well, how much did you lift? The fact of the matter is my combined lift, deadlift, squat, bench press was 1,007 pounds. Okay? That shows you guys don't know a damn thing about weightlifting. But I appreciate it anyway. And then the second thing is, how long can you hold your breath? In my case, it was 5 minutes and about 7 seconds. And how deep did you swim down? 158 feet down and up. It was my best ever. There are guys out there that do gigantically better than that, but that was fun by me, and I did set a total of 5 national records doing that. And I was happy to do all that. And then one day, my doctor looked at me and said, your PSA count is high, George. I'm going to send you to get everybody knows what a PSA count is. I mean, this is not the youngest group in the world. Some people do. I'm going to send you to get tested. And did. And I had stage 3 prostate cancer, metastasized all over my pelvic region. I was 70 years old by that time. I had 6 months, did they say? 6 months to live. Needed to give a surgery to take this thing out. Ran into one surgeon who described taking it out and how I might live for a year or 2. A totally unacceptable lifestyle, which included the phrase artificial rectum. You don't want to hear that phrase in your life. And so we said no thanks. We walked out, me and Betty. We walked out of his office. Went to another well-respected surgeon. He refused to do surgery at all. Now this guy was great. Talk about a bedside manner. His question to me was, well, Mr. Bell, you're 70 years old now. How long do you want to live? Well, the only thing I knew for sure was I was going to live long enough to get out of his office. And we did. And then we're sitting in the car going, what the hell do we do now? Because we just fired 2 surgeons in 3 days. Well, to make a long story short, we made some phone calls to some great friends. And about a week later, we flew down to Sarasota. We got a phone call from a preeminent cancer surgeon down there, preeminent urological surgeon. And he said, Mr. Bell, my brother tells me that you are the most fit 70-year-old he has ever seen. At that point in time, I weighed about 245 pounds, and I was pretty fit. I'm not that way now. But my brother tells me you are the most fit person, and based on that, I'm willing to meet with you. Get down here. And I said, okay. I went down on Wednesday. We talked on Wednesday. He agreed with me. I prepped on Thursday, and on that Thursday, he said, "I'll do this surgery, but it's based upon your physical conditioning because you're going to be under general anesthesia for 6.5 hours. And for somebody of your age, that's a huge risk." But he said, due to your physical condition, I think you can do it. And I'll never forget, I looked at him and I said, "You worry about the surgery. I'll worry about coming out from under the anesthesia." So on a Friday morning at 6 o'clock, I was in a robotic surgery room with a team of surgeons going night-night, taking that deep dive into general anesthetic, which I imagine some of the people in this room have done. And about 6.5 hours later, I started to come out of it. And I did come out of it. We liked what the surgery did. We got a second opinion on it. God did a great surgery. We thought he would. And he said, "I don't know what's going to happen next, George, but you've at least got a couple of years." Well, I'm 72 now, and it has not been a picnic, but I'm 72 and I'm standing up in front of you guys, so that's better than I was told to expect. And it occurred to me when I read this article, the first article in the Greenville News, that my greatest moment in sports didn't have anything to do with any sports I did when I was 17 or any sports I did when I was 65. My greatest moment in sports was when I knew I could depend on my body to slide into general anesthesia and know it could come out over 6 hours later. And that's the best thing that I've ever done in a sporting career. Thank you.